Let me speak to you plainly for a moment, because this is something many people miss while they're busy overthinking every small detail. You can be sitting across from someone who has already made a quiet, internal decision about you and still have no idea it's happened. While you're replaying conversations in your head, wondering whether you said the right thing, debating whether you should message first, or trying to decode a smile or a laugh, the most important signal can pass right in front of you unnoticed. This isn't about guessing games. It's not about clever lines, timing tricks, or trying to outsmart human behavior. It's about understanding how real interest is actually communicated, especially when someone feels safe enough to show it. Most people are trained to look for surface signs, like how quickly messages are answered or how lively the conversation feels. Those things can be misleading. They can happen without any deeper intention behind them. What really matters happens at a deeper emotional level. Many people spend months or even years stuck in confusion because they're watching the wrong signals. They mistake friendliness for attraction and politeness for commitment. Over time, this creates frustration, self-doubt, and emotional fatigue. You start questioning your instincts and wondering why things never seem to move forward, even when everything appears to be going well on the surface. The core problem is that most people chase validation rather than investment. Validation feels good in the moment. It looks like attention, responsiveness, and pleasant interaction. Investment is different. Investment involves emotional risk. It requires someone to open a door to their inner world and see how you respond. That's the moment when things actually change. When someone is genuinely interested, there often comes a moment where they share something personal without being pushed or questioned. This isn't casual small talk. It's not complaining about daily stress or talking about a favorite show. It's something that carries emotional weight. It might involve family dynamics, past disappointments, fears about the future, or experiences that shaped how they see relationships and trust. What makes this moment important is that it usually happens voluntarily. You didn't ask for it. You didn't dig for it. It simply appears in the conversation, sometimes unexpectedly. That's not an accident. Sharing something meaningful like that requires courage. It creates vulnerability. And vulnerability is never neutral. It's a form of emotional investment. From a psychological and emotional health perspective, opening up like this serves an important function. It's a way of testing emotional safety. When someone reveals something personal, their nervous system is paying close attention to how the other person reacts. Are they calm? Are they present? Do they listen without judgment or panic? This response helps determine whether it feels safe to deepen the connection. This is why focusing only on external behavior can keep you stuck. Someone can be warm, engaging, and expressive while still keeping their emotional core protected. That doesn't mean they're dishonest. It simply means they haven't decided to invest yet. Emotional openness is the signal that the internal decision process has shifted. This kind of sharing often happens earlier than people expect. It might show up on a first or second meeting, or even during early conversations. When that happens, it's not because full trust has already been built over time. It's because there's a sense, sometimes intuitive, that this connection might be worth exploring. That intuition leads to a small but meaningful emotional risk. Understanding this matters because it changes how you respond. If you miss it, you may continue acting uncertain, seeking reassurance, or trying harder than necessary. That can create imbalance and pressure. On the other hand, recognizing it allows you to stay grounded and present, which supports emotional safety for both people. This is not about manipulation or control. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, emotional awareness, and clear communication. Recognizing emotional investment simply helps you respond in a way that supports connection rather than undermining it. As we continue, we'll explore why this behavior happens from a psychological point of view, how to tell the difference between genuine openness and unhealthy oversharing, and how to respond in a way that keeps things balanced and emotionally healthy. For now, the key takeaway is simple. Real interest isn't always loud. Sometimes it arrives quietly, wrapped in honesty, and waits to see if it's handled with care. To really understand why this moment matters so much, it helps to look at what's happening beneath the surface. Emotional openness isn't random. From a psychological and emotional health perspective, it's one of the clearest signs that someone is moving from casual interaction into deeper consideration. When a person shares something vulnerable early on, they're not just talking. They're observing. They're watching how their nervous system responds to you and how you respond to them. For most people, emotional vulnerability is carefully guarded. It's not because they're secretive or playing games, but because vulnerability creates attachment. Attachment brings the possibility of disappointment or hurt. So the human mind is naturally selective about where and when it allows that door to open. When someone opens it early without being pushed, it usually means they've already sensed something steady and trustworthy in your presence. This is where many misunderstandings happen. Some people confuse genuine vulnerability with oversharing. They are not the same. Oversharing often feels rushed and overwhelming. It can sound like a long emotional monologue with no pauses, no checking for your reaction, and no sense of emotional awareness. That kind of sharing is usually about release, not connection. It's a boundary issue, not a sign of deep interest. Genuine vulnerability feels different. There is often hesitation. The tone may soften, there might be pauses or moments of silence. Sometimes the person shares something meaningful and then quickly changes the subject or makes a small joke. That's not avoidance, that's nervous system regulation. It's the mind saying, I've shown you something important, now I need to see how you handle it. In messages, this can look like longer texts than usual, or several shorter messages building up to one deeper statement. You might notice phrases like, I don't usually talk about this, or I don't know why I'm telling you this. Those words are important. They show awareness. The person knows they just stepped into more personal territory and they're checking whether that step was safe. Timing also matters. When vulnerability appears early, before there has been a long history of shared experiences, it carries more weight. It means the person isn't relying on time alone to create safety. They're responding to how they feel with you specifically. From an emotional health standpoint, this is a form of intuitive assessment. The brain is saying, this person feels different. Let's see if that feeling holds. Content matters too. There's a big difference between venting and revealing. Venting is usually about surface level frustration. Revealing involves meaning. It connects past experiences to present fears, patterns, or hopes. Saying someone was difficult is very different from explaining how that experience changed the way you trust or open up. One releases tension, the other invites understanding. It's also important to notice what cancels the signal. If someone shares deeply with everyone, constantly posts personal struggles for attention, or uses emotional stories to seek sympathy or validation, that's not the same thing. That behavior is outward-facing and often transactional. Genuine vulnerability is quieter, it's selective, it feels slightly uncomfortable for the person sharing it. Once you understand this distinction, things become clearer. You stop guessing based on surface behavior and start paying attention to emotional investment. That clarity alone can reduce anxiety and overthinking. You're no longer trying to read every emoji or pause, you're listening for meaning. But recognition is only half of it. The way you respond to vulnerability can either strengthen emotional safety or weaken it instantly. Many people unintentionally damage a connection at this stage, not because they lack interest, but because they don't understand what's being asked of them emotionally. In the next part, we'll talk about how to respond in a way that's calm, balanced, and supportive without turning the interaction into therapy or losing emotional grounding. This is where confidence becomes quiet rather than loud, and where emotional maturity shows itself through steadiness instead of intensity. When someone opens up to you in this way, the moment is delicate, not dramatic. Nothing needs to be fixed or solved. What matters most is how you show up emotionally. The healthiest response is calm acknowledgement. You let the person know you heard them and that their experience makes sense without minimizing it and without amplifying it. Simple, grounded responses work best because they signal emotional stability. Stability is what the nervous system reads as safety. One of the most common mistakes at this stage is overreacting. Turning the moment into a big emotional event can make the other person feel exposed or uncomfortable. On the other side, brushing it off or changing the subject too quickly can feel dismissive. The balance is gentle presence. You acknowledge, you stay steady, and you don't lose your center. After acknowledgement, a small amount of reciprocity helps. This doesn't mean sharing your entire life story or diving into unresolved pain. It means matching the depth that was offered, not exceeding it. If they shared something meaningful about their family, you can briefly mention something relevant about your own experience. This creates mutuality without overwhelming the moment. From an emotional health standpoint, this shows balance and healthy boundaries. What's important here is not slipping into a caretaker role. Trying to rescue, comfort excessively, or analyze their emotions can slowly shift the dynamic away from mutual connection. Emotional closeness doesn't grow through problem solving in early stages. It grows through shared presence and respect. You are not being asked to heal anyone. You are being asked silently whether you can remain grounded while emotions exist. In conversations, this often means allowing the moment to breathe and then gently moving forward. You might shift to something lighter or future-oriented once the emotional acknowledgement has landed. This isn't avoidance, it's regulation. It keeps the connection from becoming heavy too early and helps maintain a sense of ease alongside depth. In person, tone and body language matter as much as words. A steady voice, relaxed posture, and natural eye contact communicate more than any carefully chosen sentence. If touch happens, it should feel natural and unforced, never used as reassurance or pressure. The message you're sending is simple: I'm here and I'm okay. Maintaining emotional balance at this stage is a sign of maturity. When someone shares vulnerability early, it often means they've already made an internal choice to explore something deeper. At that point, the goal isn't to prove yourself or increase effort. In fact, doing more than necessary can create imbalance. Healthy connection grows when investment is met, not exceeded. This is where many connections quietly fade. The person who opened up senses a shift. Maybe the other person becomes overly available, overly intense, or overly anxious to keep the connection. That change can feel destabilizing. Emotional safety depends on consistency. Staying centered reassures the other person that their openness was placed in the right hands. From a broader perspective, this understanding can change how you approach relationships altogether. You stop chasing signs and start responding to substance. You trust emotional cues rather than surface behavior. Over time, this reduces confusion, builds confidence, and leads to healthier, more mutual connections. The deeper takeaway is this: when someone shares vulnerability with you early, they are offering trust, not asking for performance. How you receive that trust matters more than anything you say next. Calm presence, emotional balance, and respectful forward movement create the conditions where genuine connection can grow naturally. This isn't about control or technique, it's about emotional awareness and self regulation. When you understand that, you stop fearing silence, stop overanalyzing, and start recognizing real interest when it appears. And that clarity alone can make relationships feel less confusing and far more human.